I'm Ryan Fang. I'm a student in Dr. Stager's previous class, and I'm also a volunteer on the student committee for Startup Week. I'm pleased to introduce our speaker here. He's the founder of Gastrograph, and this is an artificial intelligence platform that helps beverage and food producers. It's my pleasure to welcome Jason Cohen.
Hi, everyone. So I think a bunch of you have been through prior Startup Week events so far, and a lot of them, what I've seen, I attended these when I was a student here at Penn State. I presented at one other Startup Week. And so what we see a lot of is founders or CEOs or individuals from large companies coming and giving great advice, great recommendations. But a lot of it is really difficult to integrate and to use and to understand when you're just starting out. And so I wanted to make this a bit more applied. And so we're actually going to do something much more like a workshop, right? Because the problem is, the problem is that half of all the advice that you get is wrong, right? So this comic is XKCD, says, never stop buying lottery tickets, no matter what anyone tells you, right? Failed again and again. And the idea is that everyone is going to have survivorship bias. Anyone who's presenting, this is what worked for me, this is what you should do, that's survivorship bias. And there's all of these beliefs in the startup world or the startup community or that you'll find on startup blogs of you have to do these 3 things, or you have to start by doing these things, or this is what makes good companies successful. But a lot of that is untested, right? People do it because everyone does it, and everyone does it because they read on some blog that that's what everyone does. And so what we want to do is we want to take a step back and look at first principles. What are the things that are needed in order to make your company successful? And so take this either with a grain of salt or with a large mountain of salt, depending on what side of the line it lies on for you. But one of the problem is, right, you don't know which half of the advice is right or wrong until much, much later. So we'll present some things from first principles. I'll present some things from first principles. We're going to do this workshop style, and you'll see how much of the advice you can take away. So like I said, something completely different. The idea behind this presentation is that clear communication, the ability to communicate your ideas at any stage of development, is an advantage. It doesn't matter if you are 1 person or 2 people in a garage or in a dorm at Penn State and you have no revenue, no customers, no employees. It doesn't matter if you have millions of dollars in funding and 50 employees, and it doesn't matter if you're a large global company, right? You're going to be pitching and presenting and trying to clarify and communicate your ideas no matter what you do, and you're going to be doing it all the time. And anyone who has the ability to communicate more clearly and to make themselves more understood more easily is going to have that advantage. So statistics, right? The average startup fails. 99% of all startups, high growth technology startups, fail. That's a 1% success rate. And no one starts off believing like, oh, right, I have a 1% success rate. I didn't start this company at Penn State and say to myself, great, 99%, right, probably fail, 1% probably succeed. But realistically, right, you start off with a 1% success rate. And from there, there's things that you can do to raise that success rate. And so we believe that communication, we have a lot of evidence, that communication, clarifying your ideas, being able to present your ideas, is one of those things that if you improve, you'll have a much easier time of succeeding. And once you succeed, the average startup takes about 7 years to exit. Most of those exits, this is the 1% of startups that succeed, most of those exits are mergers and acquisitions, right? And about 50, 60% of those are sold basically at cost. So that returns approximately no money to investors, or just as much money as they put in, right? The rest of the 50% go on to return some capital on investment, and maybe 1% of those actually go to something like an IPO, an initial public offering, right, or turn into a large standalone company. So it's an uphill battle from the beginning. And if you start a successful company, you need to start thinking about those 7 years. So not to pick on any companies in particular, but we've seen some companies. One that existed when I was here at Penn State was called Lyon Party Network. And it was a company that was supposed to help you find a Penn State party near you. Yeah, and I'm sure that was an incredible amount of fun to start. And I'm sure those guys got invited to a lot more parties running Lyon Party Network. But I can't imagine that in 3 years or 4 years when they graduate, or 5 years, 6 years, 7 years after they've been out of school, that they still want to be working on that they're still going to be attending Penn State parties. You think you're going to be attending Penn State parties 4 years after you graduate? No? Yeah. So when you pick one of these things to work on, you should be thinking about 5-year and 10-year time horizons. Because if you're successful and you have customers and investors and employees, you have a responsibility to them to keep that operating, to return the money, to keep the company growing. That's why they invested in you, right? So you should pick things that matter, and you should pick things that you want to work on. And that's another thing that's going to increase your success rate. So once you've picked your idea, you've started your company, you're going to be talking about your company every day to everyone as long as it lives. And that's a pretty exhausting proposition, right? You're going to be presenting this all the time. You're going to have to learn it so well that you can present it in your sleep, you can present it in 30 seconds, you can present it in 3 minutes, or you can present it in 3 hours, right? You're going to have different meetings and different conversations that are going to last those different lengths of time that you need to be able to effectively and clearly communicate why someone should join you, why someone should invest in you, why someone should use your technology versus a competitor's technology. And this is a difficult thing to do. And it starts off really, really hard, right? And so the idea behind this workshop is you may as well get good at it. So first principles. Clarity of communication is clarity of thought, is clarity of mind. If you can clearly communicate, it shows that you know what you're thinking of, and it shows that you've actually thought through all of its implications. Is that clear? Good. So good ideas can be like a virus, right? They can take on a life of their own. You can tell them to people and they can spread. They can change behaviors, they can change industries, they can change technology. And a good example of that is Uber. So Uber has made the idea very clear and very easy that you should be able to get into any random stranger's car at a touch of a button and arrive where you want to go paying a fair flat rate, right? Before Uber, that was a crazy idea. Hitchhiking was illegal in most of the United States, right? But Uber made that real. And they made that real by clearly communicating the value proposition. We're going to take you where you want to go using drivers who are already on the road, and we're going to do it mobily without a phone call, and we're going to do it cheaply, right? Anyone tried to use taxis before Uber? You would call, they'd say it's a 20-minute wait, the taxi wouldn't show up. You had no idea what the price was going to be before you got in the taxi. The taxi would lie to you and tell you they don't accept American Express, right? It was not a good experience. So that's what we mean, that a good idea can be like a virus of the mind. So when you watch Steve Jobs communicate what a computer is, he didn't say, right, oh, a computer is 10 million transistors that can do complex mathematics faster than a human, right? He didn't say that computers are a better typewriter, right? What he said is computers are a bicycle for the mind. And he said that because he wanted to show that computers were augmenting human capabilities, that they weren't there to compete with humans or to take over jobs from humans, that computers were there to make humans more capable. And that's a really effective and clear way of communicating that, right? No one's scared of a bicycle. Most people like riding bicycles, at least not in Pennsylvania weather. But that's the difference, right? Is that clear communication, that clear envisioning, because then someone can easily respond like, okay, well, who's going to use it? And he can say, everyone, right? So there's an old saying, this used to be more popular, but an old saying, investment thesis saying that optimal startup teams, right? You have a hacker, a designer, and a hustler. The hacker's going to build the software, designer's going to make it beautiful and easy to use, and the hustler is going to be the one who sells the idea. They're going to sell it to, they're going to talk about it, they're going to present it, they're going to get investment, they're going to get clients, they're going to get recruit employees. But the thing that they don't tell you is that it's usually the hustler that becomes the CEO, right? It's who's ever holding that idea, presenting that idea. It's who's ever pitching that idea that usually becomes the CEO. So if you're sitting there and you think that I want to become a CEO, I want to co-found a company, right? You think I could leave the communication bit to other people, I can leave the presentation to other people, I can leave the sales to the salespeople, right? Then you're fooling yourself. That's not first principles. Because if you can't communicate it, then you're never going to hire a VP of comms or a VP of sales who can communicate it, and you're never going to talk other companies into using it, right? You have to be able to clearly and distinctly and uniquely communicate the value and the impact of what it is you're doing and why anyone should care. Because otherwise, no one's going to care. So, first principles again. Whoever controls the conversation has the advantage in shaping what happens next. Is that clear? Right? If you can frame your arguments, if you can frame the questions that people are going to ask, if you can shift your phrasing or your examples to match what someone is going to be receptive of or what someone wants to discuss, right, then you can control the flow of the conversation. You can control whether that conversation is going to end in a sale or it's going to end in a rejection. You can control whether it's going to end in an investment or it's going to end in a rejection, right? You have to be able to shape the communication, shape the conversation, shape the points that you're going to be making. And that shows even further handle, right, an even better handle on the ideas and the concepts and the tools or the technology that you're building, that you're working on. So this is not easy to do. And when I first started Analytical Flavor Systems, we definitely didn't get this right from the beginning. Right, so these are 3 rejection emails for investment from about 3 years ago. Wesley Chan was at Google Ventures. John Lenihan was at Spark Capital. I don't remember where Tim Devine was. I guess it wasn't an important investment fund. But these are 3 rejection letters. Right? And when you first start pitching, this is the surest sign that something's not working. Your communication's unclear. The value proposition is not clear. Whoever it is doesn't believe in what you're doing. Right? And that's fairly constructive negative feedback. That is harsh and impactful negative feedback. And you say, oh, it doesn't matter, they didn't get it, right? Then you're deluding yourself. Right? It's always because you did not communicate clearly enough, because you did not do something, you did not create something, you did not envision something that was unique and distinct and valuable enough. Or maybe you did and you just didn't get the idea across, right? So since then, we've raised well over $500,000. We work with some of the largest food and beverage companies in the world. I was just in Indonesia, New Zealand, Tokyo, Shanghai, over in Q1 with multiple meetings in each one. We had multi-day boardroom meetings in New Zealand, resulting in one of our largest sales ever. And that was 2 days worth of presenting to panels of 15 people who were the global directors of R&D of a company, right? And I have to be able to stand there, converse with them, and be able to debate their points. They say, will this really work on our product? Will this really work in our industry? What proof do you have that this is going to work in our industry? It doesn't matter that it's worked in other industries, that it's worked in beer, that it's worked in coffee. How is it going to work with what we do, right? And you have to be able to respond to that. You have to be able to do that confidently, competently, and you have to make it clear from the beginning, because if you waver or if you can't pull examples and believable arguments, then you're not going to make that sale. So here's an example of that. So I get asked who I am all the time, sometimes in business settings, sometimes casually. So if I'm standing at a bar and a beautiful woman says, what do you do? I can say, I'm a professional taster. That's interesting, that's intriguing, right? That's true. I was going to say, what do you mean you're a professional taster? What do you taste, right? Oh, beer, coffee, wine, tea, spirits, scotch, right? Variety of things. That's very interesting. That usually gets a conversation going. If someone asks me, right, what do you do, and I don't want to have the conversation, I could say something like, oh, I build machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms to model human sensory perception in food and beverage products. Right? That conversation usually stops about there. Doesn't go much further. And so you can shape where that's going to go, right? That's kind of obvious. And so you should start this now. So this is, I started the Tea Institute at Penn State, an interdisciplinary research institute dedicated to the study and preservation of all tea ceremony, and tea culture. This is the Tea Master of Taiwan. These were all of my former students. So no one instinctively cares about tea. Right? I didn't go to the university and say, you know what we really need? Let's start a tea institute. And they were like, yes, absolutely. That's going to compete with the football team for funding and turnout. Right? Who here's actually ever heard of the Tea Institute? Oh, cool, a couple people. That's awesome. So this was not like an instinctively easy or interesting thing. The university was not initially of this, right? So what did we do? We just operated so well that they couldn't ignore us. We got funding. We flew in the Tea Master of Taiwan. We flew in the ambassador of Taiwan to the United States, and we told the university, well, look, you know, these people are coming. You should really be here with us, right? And then the university showed up, and that's the way they didn't by trying to talk the university into it first. We found people who already cared and were already passionate about tea, right? Tea Master of Taiwan, ambassador of Taiwan, and we got them to show up. and then the university didn't have much of a choice. We then flew in the director of the Korean Global Scholarship Fund, the director, the tea master of Korea, and Brother Anthony of the Taizé community, right? Another group of fairly high government officials, government-sponsored officials from Korea. We did the same thing again, right? So that's how we went about it. We found the people. We made the argument to the people who were passionate and cared about, and then we made a different argument to the university. So these skills are infinitely transferable, right? Being able to recruit people, students like you, to care about tea is not the easiest thing to start with, right? Otherwise, you would all be members of the Tea Institute. Doing that with three sides, right? Students, foreign relations, and the university is even more complicated. And you have to give a different argument, a different communication, a different pitch to each of them. And these skills transfer even further. This is Jerry Schweitzer. He's one of the co-founders of Leblon, the first Brazilian rum in the United States. And we're given a big radio show on the failure of innovation in the food and beverage industry. It's a really popularly attended show. Right? Being able to get on the radio where you have no real feedback, where it's just a conversation between two people and have people listen in. It's the same set of skills that we're talking about. So, first principles. There's a common saying, right? Practice makes perfect. But that's not true, because you're going to do you're going to perform exactly the way that you practice. So if you're not practicing perfect, you're not going to perform perfect. So it's repeat and focus perfect practice makes perfect. And that means that you're going to need feedback. So the difference between a novice and an expert is a novice looks for positive feedback, right? They want to know, what did I do well, right? What was good about this presentation? What was good about the idea? What did you like about it? How likely do you think it's going to be successful? They're looking for that positive push forward, right? That push that tells them to keep going. Experts don't do that, right? Experts do the opposite. They want constructive negative feedback every time. What didn't you like? What didn't land? What didn't go well? What could have been better? How could we have rephrased this? How could we have repitched this? What example could we have used, right? That's how you know whether you're on the side, on the novice side or on the expert side, is when you begin looking for constructive negative feedback. And so we have to get to the point, and maybe we'll get to that today, where we give everyone constructive negative feedback on their ability to present. So we're going to start the workshop side of things. We're going to start with a game called I Disagree. Everyone should take like less than 5 to 10 seconds to do this. We're going to go down the row. This is a frequent exercise in debate teams, right? So I'm going to make a statement, and we'll limit it to this table first, and we'll do different statements for these tables. And I'm going to make a statement, and you have to say, I disagree, and make a single point, okay? So the first statement we're going to make, we'll go with the same one from the last class, is that all men should grow beards.
I disagree. It wastes money.
How does growing a beard waste money?
You have to buy blades and shaving butters and like spend time in the morning, and maybe you don't catch the bus to class. You have to take an Uber.
I disagree. They're too scratchy.
They're too scratchy.
I disagree. My beard is very plush and healthy.
Yeah.
I disagree. Some people can't rock it.
Some people cannot rock it.
I disagree because sometimes it's required for jobs or required to not have it for jobs. Required being, say, like undercover would come to change the appearance.
I disagree because sometimes jeans just don't allow it.
I disagree because military members can't have beards.
I disagree. I think everyone should have a beard. I disagree because not everyone can pull off the beard look.
I disagree because everyone should have the freedom of choice.
I disagree because some guys don't like having a beard.
I disagree. They get itchy.
I disagree because they don't always look good.
I disagree because they take a lot of upkeep.
I disagree because I can't grow a beard.
I disagree because I also have trouble growing a beard.
You're supposed to be arguing for beers. Yes, no, yes, no. Yeah.
Wait, I'm disagreeing with
With him.
Oh, I thought you said disagree with him. I disagree. They look good.
I disagree. A lot of people can't grow them. I disagree. Some people can grow them.
Awesome. So we're going to do a clarification. You're responding to the person who goes before you. And the other clarification is that you have to make a unique point. So it can't be something that someone else said. Okay? So the next one, this statement for you guys to debate, is that we should breed giant dragonflies and create a mounted cavalry for the U.S. Army. Okay, so she said no, it's expensive.
I disagree. It sounds really fun.
Shouldn't our enemies be scared of our flying cavalry?
You don't have anyone to tame them. I disagree because I want to feel safe.
Well, won't the mounted cavalry keep you safe?
I thought that's what I was arguing.
Oh, good. Excellent.
I disagree because some people might not want to be protected by dragonflies.
I disagree that, yeah, it's definitely dangerous and it's definitely expensive too.
You're arguing for the dragonflies.
Okay. I disagree because I think we could take a lot of cool pictures of them.
I disagree because it seems like a waste of time.
I disagree because I think those are not protected. I disagree. It could really hurt the military.
I disagree because I think that would be a surprise attack for
At least the first time.
I disagree. I think that's pretty close to economics. I disagree because trying to tame a whole bunch of dragonflies that sounds fun.
I disagree. I think it does sound fun.
I disagree because I think drones are cheaper and easier to control.
But they don't self-replicate.
Drones.
Okay. I disagree that drone's too expensive. I disagree because they could work.
I disagree because I think it's just cool.
Great. So this was better, right? Everyone's starting to make good points. So final table, you guys have the hardest task. It has to be a point. It cannot be an opinion-based argument, right? So you have to be able to pull some fact. And now I need to think of a topic. We should ban self-driving cars.
I disagree because I believe that if all self-driving cars are on the road, that will leave less room for human error.
I disagree. A self-driving car killed a woman last week.
I disagree because they've been proven to work.
I disagree because all computers, all like self-driving computers and stuff have errors.
I disagree because it makes the roads safer for pedestrians.
I disagree because I think that's no.
I disagree because wait, so it's like you disagree or like I do disagree, but like the point would be
You have to refute her point.
yeah, it I disagree because they're fast. I don't know honestly.
Was he agreeing with the banner?
He was, yeah, but he's responding to her that they have been well tested enough.
Okay, so I'm going against it.
Yes.
I disagree that there's human error in testing. I disagree that they eliminated human error in testing. I disagree because robots. I disagree because that will be too much waste of time to create a robot, and it's better to just use humans. I disagree because you can help us save money. I disagree because I think it would cost more money. I disagree because you said it could help us save money. Is that what you said?
Costs more money.
Save money.
technology and R&D need to put into creating a self-driving car without cost too much?
I disagree because it would you'd be able to fire everyone that needs to drive those cars.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. Who found that easy? One person. Who found that hard? Yeah. So that ability, right, to think on your feet, to be able to immediately respond to what someone said before you, that's what this kind of communication exercise is supposed to build. So if you're doing this in a debate team, you'd start adding further and further rules. You'd actually have to make specific points to be able to cite certain things. You can add rules that you have to end on the same topic that you started. So on some of them, we started by talking about self-driving cars should be banned, and your first one was that it'll save lives. The entire debate would then have to be on whether or not it saves lives, going back and forth, right? So you can really nail down and practice the ability to go back and forth with someone. And these are the identical skills that you would be doing in sales or in recruiting or in pitching investors. So are there any founders here? Anyone wants to start a company? You. Great. Come on up. Come on up. Wait, not yet, not yet. Not yet. Not yet. Yeah. Not yet, not yet. You don't know what we're doing yet. So we're going to put, what was it, 1 minute? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to put 1 minute on the clock. You're going to give a pitch to the class of why they should invest, join, use it, whichever direction you want to go. And then we're going to do a critique. Constructive negative feedback.
All right.
It'll be really harsh. Okay, you can start.
Okay, so we are starting a company like that's based on class project. We have 40 founders in our class. So the project is about we are building the campus safety for female college students. So we are currently sell like pepper sprays and all kinds of self-defense project. And now we are just getting started. We got like $2 grand of starting money and looking for VCs to fund us more.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, let's start off with critiques. Anyone have critiques off the bat? Oh.
So you didn't really name what your problem was or what like opportunity in the market you were solving for.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't expect that coming, so.
Other critiques?
Why I have to buy from you?
Why buy from you versus from any other vendor? Amazon. Critiques? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Spent the whole time talking about what you were doing and what your activity was, never about who you were affecting.
Yeah. So a couple of things off the bat. So you didn't name the company, so we have no way of searching or knowing who you guys are, what you're called.
It's a Quill company.
Quill company. Second thing is that you didn't really make it impactful, right? The third thing is you actually undermined the pitch by talking about it starting as a class project and 40 other founders, right? You didn't make it sound unique or special. You didn't give a reason why we should believe that you're the right person to do it, right? It sounded like a class idea and it wasn't clear if you were the only founder, one of many founders, one of a few founders, if the founders were working on the same thing, different things, together, separate, right? So if you were to give that pitch again, you could say something like, female safety on campuses is a huge problem. Universities are investing millions of dollars in order to make sure that all of the students and all of the, particularly the female students, feel safe, whether they're out during the day, walking around late at night, whether they've had a drink, or whether they're coming from the library. We offer a service that equips female students funded by the universities with pepper spray and other defense items that are legal in whatever state we're operating in. We put up phone booths and emergency call booths at various points around campus and make sure that all of the alleyways and all of the walkways are brightly lit, right? So, yeah. Right. That makes sure that everyone feels safe. It keeps female students on campus. It keeps the campus from being sued, and everyone goes home happy, right? So that's the type of pitch that's unique, that's interesting, and it shows a potential business model with partnerships with the university. So, awesome. Thanks. Anyone else want to give it a try? Where? Come on up. Can you put 1 minute on the clock?
Do you want to know what is happiness? There's a lot of people in this world chasing for happiness for their whole life. But my company is dedicated on teaching people how to find their happiness. My company is going to call Flavians because that's something that people always look up to. People always look at it and find their way during their wilderness. And now I'm going to introduce you an app that can help you to find your happiness. So this app's going to teach to ask for users what is something make them happy every single day. And then we'll upload it to the database and push it to every other users during our communities and tell them what make others happy. It's going to be anonymous, and it's also going to be very efficient. It's going to be a sentences, a picture, or a simple description of an item. And to build up the community, we are going to first start inviting Insta stars or YouTubers to first introduce their influence into our community, and then we'll build up from that one. And then how are we going to make
time?
Thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, critiques off the bat. Yep, didn't say the name of the app.
Spend like a lot of time framing the situation.
Yeah, a good opening framing is important, but frames have to be like a sentence or 2 sentences max, right? You could say something like, recently we've seen that everyone's into quantified self and quantified health. What about quantified happiness? Entire countries like Bhutan have developed something called gross domestic happiness to measure and promote the happiness of their citizenry. We think that we can do better. We can do that from a mobile app and help every individual who wants to be learn what makes them and other users happy, right? That's so that's like a type of opening frame, right? You're linking it to things that are already happening in the world, things that people already know to be true, and you're saying that you have a solution to an active problem, right? Other critiques. Other critiques. Come on, guys. You could do it.
Yeah, you quickly went out from the framing, you went into what you're going to do step by step. And I didn't really care. I just wanted to know what the solution was.
Yeah, lead with the impact. Other things. Business model. Do you have a business model?
Oh,
yeah.
So my plan is first starting like collecting data from the users, building up the communities, show people like how are we going to find things that make people happy, and then we're trying to incorporate the
retail therapy.
Retail therapy, like inside of it, and then like, people can buy directly or purchase services from our app to achieve their happiness.
Awesome. Good. So no other feedback? No? Okay. Thank you. Gotta plug this in. So next thing that we need are one second, went out of presentation mode. That's plenty of time. Where are we? There we go. Okay, 2 brave souls. Come on up. We need 1 other brave soul. Yep, come on up. Okay, you might want to stand both off to the side. So this is going to be, I'm glad you guys volunteered before you knew what you were volunteering for. That's good. This is going to be a competition between the 2 of them. They're going to present a company based on slides they've never seen before, And whichever one of them presents the better company, we'll vote on after. Okay? So you have 2.5 minutes. You're going to go first. Let's see. This clicker does work. Great. You have 2.5 minutes. There's going to be 6 or 7 slides. First slide's a title slide. Every slide has its own title after that. And you should present based on that. You're going to be judged on how impactful it is, how realistic it is, and which one we think is going to be more likely to be successful. Ready? Okay. First slide.
So, Octavian Legion Inc. This is my company. We are going to attract the market of soap. Basically, the biggest issue right now with soap is that after you clean the dishes, you have soap all over your hands, and it has an odd consistency where it doesn't really come right off your hands. So what's our solution? That the proper gloves you wear will actually help keep your hands soapless. Now this is any type of soap, any type of base. As we learned in chemistry class, soaps are bases, and they can really hurt your hands. So these proper gloves will actually keep your hands dry and clean and not slippery even after you rinse them off. So, an unfair advantage. Right now, the soap industry is huge. Everyone has soap, whether it's dish soap or hand soap or like body soap. Everyone's got soap, and it's always the same companies, and they dominate the industry. So how do we come up as a new small guy? Well, we're going to show you where it really helps. We're going to do it like the European, like tobacco packages, right? Where you just see people with really bad injuries. That's what we're doing with our soap stuff. We're going to show you what we're saving you from. Bad skin, pruny fingers, none of that anymore when our gloves are released. And we're going to take an ad campaign that is going to take down this unfair advantage of the soap people who make you think that they're saving you from dirt, grime, and unhealth. So, when does traction start? Traction starts when people see the results. When people see that their hands are better off with our product, they're going to know that this is a hit. It's going to take right off. So our business model. We're going to start off in small retailers with our gloves, and we're going to be giving them to dishwashers in restaurants. Those are the people that know the best what it's like to have pretty fingers and soapy hands. So once our gloves really take off within that community and word of mouth takes on, we'll then start an aggressive ad campaign on Facebook and other social media platforms. We want the shares because we want people to share their experiences along with experiences they've heard about as well. So, our team and our ask. So the team is me and my friend Davis. Davis is the mastermind and I'm the business mind, all right? He's the one who's been doing this whole product time.
Okay. Wait. Feedback. Feedback.
For like half of the slides, I didn't know what you were talking about. You focused too much on soap.
Yeah.
Other feedback. Yeah, probably the only feedback is a little bit too much time per slide. So you got a little bit repetitive with the soap, but other than that, that flowed pretty well. No one else? So, 2 slides forward. And put the time on the clock. You ready? One more. Go.
So my company is called Alice Organics. So our problem right now is that we don't have enough living space here on the earth, and soon we're going to be depleting our sources. So what we're looking into is being able to move our life source onto another planet. Right now our primary source of life that we're looking into is Mars. We've done a lot of research into the living resources there, how the environment can work with what we're used to here. So our unfair advantage is that we've actually sent our employees and our testers up onto Mars. So right now we have a habitat up on Mars. It's currently been about a year and a half worth of time. So our employees are constantly in contact with us in terms of how they're sustaining life up there. Things they're testing like growing plants, different life that's already on there. They're exploring, mapping Mars out, which sort of gives us this unfair advantage in terms of other companies that haven't had firsthand experience of being able to be on Mars. So our traction comes when people realize that it is a possible source of sustainable life at Mars. We're conducting a lot of different studies right now, gathering a lot of research that gives real-world results in how this is going to be an effective solution to the problem of not being able to live on Earth for 50 years at a time. So this is our business model. Right now there's not any text on there, but we just want to give a visual image of how our business model is going to work. So right now, I said we mentioned we already have people up there, and we want to market that somehow to everyone else. So by the next 5 years, we have a petition of people signing up where they're willing to, go out on Mars, and that's a big leap. And I think that gathering enough people, everyone the same as us, will sort of show that this is definitely a viable option. And we think that that will sort of move and impact everyone else be convinced to take a chance on Mars. So this our team is comprised of 3 people: myself, Christian Fonaboa, and Ryan Jones. I'm the salesperson. We have our hacker and we have our designer.
Awesome. Awesome.
You want to be the robot, or you want to be lots of experience? Because I know how to pitch.
All right, feedback. Feedback. Yes.
Atlas Organics.
Yeah.
I believe, right?
Yep.
Oh,
That's
sweet.
Got it.
Great picture.
Other feedback. So in the beginning, you probably rushed through the problem slide, right? You really quickly went from problem to solution without really establishing a firm set of problem. And so much so that you had to go back after presenting the solution and restate the problem.
Okay.
It was definitely because you were pitching on the fly.
Yeah.
But you definitely want to frame it where you go problem, solution, tech, business, traction, right? Onward. Because if you have to jump back and forth, break your own flow, you break everyone else's memory. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Gotcha.
Other things. You're all going to move to Mars based on this pitch.
Thank you. That's my job.
Okay. Well, we have two competitors. We'll do a vote by hands, by voice.
Gloves or Mars? Come on.
Yeah, gloves are Mars. We'll do it by clap. So for everyone for gloves.
Oh, jeez.
And for Mars. That's pretty close.
Maybe we can make gloves on Mars.
We have 8 more minutes.
Awesome. Okay.
You want to team up?
Yeah.
Whoa, no.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys for participating. So, questions. This is questions for me. A lot of failed pitches. You remember all those no investment emails in the beginning? Yeah.
Do you have like I don't know, for us, do you have some recommendation for us to, like, instead of having failed pitches, is there other way we can learn from this?
There's not much of a replacement for experience than experience. So you are definitely going to have to get out there and do a bunch of pitches that go poorly or don't go as well as you'd like. There's a funny bit of it. They brought in, what's that guy's name? Jerry Seinfeld to teach a class on comedy into like a comedy school course. And he's like, look, you guys need to know that probably none of you are ever going to be famous. And everyone's like, what? You're taking a comedy course. No one I know who's a famous comedian ever took a comedy course. Right? You guys would be better served by going and getting a day job, doing comedy for fun, right? Enjoy it. And so the idea is that Jerry Seinfeld and all of the other comedians, anyone who's spending time like that, is doing it by failing. even when Seinfeld or Stephen Colbert or Jay Leno, any of those guys, are practicing out jokes before the live recording, they're actually practicing it on the tours. As people come through, one of the stops on the tours is actually Jay Leno saying a joke, right? And he measures, just intuitively, how much they laugh. And if they laugh enough, then it goes on the show. And if it doesn't laugh enough, then they pass, right? Even in New York City, any of the famous comedians like Dave Chappelle and stuff, you can see them sometimes. They show up at the small comedy clubs and they test out their new material there. They test it out where it doesn't matter, where it's okay if they're not so funny or if it falls flat. So there's not a ton of replacement for that. I would suggest watching back-to-backs like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates presenting. Steve Jobs is by far the better communicator, and seeing those like presentations versus presentations at that level back-to-back is pretty helpful. Other questions? No other questions.
Not really a question, but I take it you're more of the CTO type and not really the designer and everything since you're so good at public speaking and things like that.
Yeah, I don't do the designs, so I made these in the car on the way over. Yeah. But yeah, I do more of, in the company I run the machine learning, the artificial intelligence team directly, and then I also do all of the client-facing works, the initial client pitches, the contract negotiations and stuff. That won't be the case forever, but that's how the work is split up right now. Yes, we do have a very competitive internship program in basically all fields, particularly data science and software engineering.
Could you give a founder's pitch for Gastrograph?
Yes, I could. How much time do we have?
You have 4 more minutes.
I have 4 minutes. This is a fun one. Do you want to put 2 minutes on the timer? Let's see. I'll do a very short version. Yeah, I guess you could. Oh, it is being recorded. Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Jason, founder and CEO of Analytical Flavor Systems. We built a machine learning and artificial intelligence platform that understands what different people taste in food and beverage products. And because we understand what they taste, we can predict what they like today and predict the evolution of their preferences over time. So we help the largest food and beverage companies in the world develop new products to meet changing consumer preference and to optimize their existing brands. The problem is that 95% of new food and beverage products fail. That's through conception, through R&D for its first 3 years on the market. That means that the food and beverage industry, out of a $20 million a year spend on new product development and innovation, would be $18.1 billion of that. That's a huge amount of waste. So the problem is that sensory science looks like this, right? You have a couple different people in the room tasting a narrow range of products, writing their notes down on paper and pencil, and what really drives me up the walls are eating pretzels as they do it. This is not a scientific way to develop products. So what we do is we are able to understand and predict different consumers like and dislike products and optimize those flavors, aromas, and textures to meet their preferences so that everyone can have a perfect product that's built for them. We do this in 3 different ways. We do innovation management, which is new product development, product reformulation, and portfolio management, which is multiple product optimization, deep market insights, which is cognitive marketing. That's the ability to communicate your flavor profile to your demographics so that they're trying to focus on the most positive attributes, which causes them to like it more. And we do this by modeling the differences between perception and preference. So across every age, sex, race, socioeconomic status, and consumer cohort, predicting what they're going to like and dislike and how their preferences are going to change. That's probably time. Oh. Yeah. No, the rest of this is technology, so that's not enough time. So that would be like a pretty quick intro pitch. So that would be too much for an elevator pitch, but probably about enough to get someone who is like a VP of innovation or a CTO at a food and beverage company interested.
So are you guys selling the technology or also the analysis?
It's a SaaS service. So we take their sensory data, we take what their professional tasters in-house on their R&D teams taste, and then we can predict how different consumer cohorts will like or if there's any gaps in their product portfolio. I think we have time for one more question. No? All right, I'll ask you guys. Was this helpful?
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
All right, for my 331 students who came in late, Friday's going to be a work day.
Okay, so I guess we could